I'd like to present reasons behind my assertions that blockchain is probably not the way forward for democratized voting processes. The first reason for my beliefs is the overall less trust in digitization. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to the views of Mr. Brian Behlendorf, a big blockchain proponent and the executive director of the Hyperledger Framework for Linux Foundation.
In the middle, the actual act of walking into a booth and registering a vote, or a lot of people want to do voting by mobile device or by computer. I'm very worried about that, the digitization of that. Our computers fail us all the time, and malware and other threats could really step in and make it so that I think I'm voting for one candidate, but it gets recorded for another, right? And we have to think in the United States, we care quite a bit about the confidentiality of our vote. Even to the point where I get no receipt, right? I can't go to a bar and prove that I voted for somebody and get a discount for it, right? That would be considered bribery. So we can't simply come up with a system that puts all the original votes into a public ledger and provides proof that somebody voted a certain way, or that becomes a corruptive process.
Next, let us try to understand why digital voting attacks can be scaled through the unique view into voting as a process provided to us by Mr. Tom Scott.
But the key point is not that paper voting is perfect. It isn't. But attacks against it don't scale well. Physical voting is centuries old, and in that time, almost every conceivable fraud on the system has been tried, and defenses have been found. The more physical votes you need to change, the more people you need to influence, the more time and money it takes, and the less likely it is that your little conspiracy will stay secret. In a UK election, there are hundreds of polling stations across the country, with staff made up of scores of employees and thousands of volunteers. The job of changing a significant number of votes, enough to sway an election, becomes very, very difficult.
Finally, let's look at how the European Parliamentary Research Service looks at the complications of implementation of this process and the big issue in relaying in trust for the complicated system within the voting population.
Furthermore, some people might not have a suitable device, so the authorities would have to make them available. Also, the best way we know to combat vote buying and coercion is to use private voting booths. But in doing all this, we would re-centralise the system. So while the beauty of blockchain was its decentralisation, with individual voters recording, counting and checking the votes themselves on their own devices, here we would end up once again with a centralised system. Finally, public confidence is crucial. Any system has to be understandable and trustworthy enough so that even if a voter is disappointed with the result, they can accept that it was fair and valid.
With these points, I do not completely negate the possibility of blockchain possibly becoming the means and ends for democratized voting in the future, but I don't believe that it is currently at the state to do that, to justify the possibility of democratized voting being the standard voting process for any nation in the world. Thank you.